If you haven't subscribed to WWE Express yet, you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell, because what happened between The Rock and CM Punk on Raw is one of the most brutal psychological demolitions we've witnessed in professional wrestling in years. The Rock didn't just respond to CM Punk's insults. He completely dismantled everything Punk was trying to accomplish, and this moment reveals something profound about how credibility actually works in WWE. Welcome to WWE Express, your home for deep analysis of WWE's greatest storylines, character psychology, and narrative dynamics. If you're passionate about understanding the artistry behind professional wrestling's most compelling moments, please make sure you're subscribed with notifications enabled so you never miss our regular wrestling analysis and breakdowns. Let's set the stage for what actually happened. CM Punk, standing in that ring on Raw, made a calculated decision to attack The Rock's relevance and his place in WWE's contemporary landscape. This wasn't some random moment of disrespect. This was a targeted assault on everything The Rock represents. Punk questioned whether The Rock still belongs in conversations about WWE's present and future, whether his legacy actually matters in the current climate, whether he's still the dominant force he once was. By every measure, CM Punk threw down a gauntlet that demanded a response. And The Rock responded in a way that only The Rock can respond. What's critical to understand is that The Rock's destruction of CM Punk wasn't loud or aggressive or full of personal attacks. That's not how The Rock operates when he's in complete control of a situation. Instead, The Rock demonstrated something far more devastating. He demonstrated absolute certainty. He didn't try to convince anyone of anything. He simply stated objective reality in a way that made CM Punk's entire line of argumentation collapse under its own weight. The genius of this moment lies in understanding the fundamental difference between defensive responses and dominant responses. A defensive response is when someone feels threatened and needs to prove something. A dominant response is when someone is so confident in their position that they can acknowledge a challenge, address it briefly, and then move forward without concern. The Rock gave a dominant response, and that distinction is everything. When you really analyze what happened, The Rock essentially told CM Punk that the very act of making these accusations proves Punk's inferiority. Think about that from a psychological perspective. If you have to argue about whether you belong at someone's level, you've already lost the argument. People who actually exist at the highest level don't need to convince anyone of their worth. They don't need lengthy explanations or defensive justifications. Their accomplishments speak with such volume that no amount of words can diminish them. CM Punk made the fundamental error of believing that speaking intelligently, making coherent points, and articulating a compelling narrative would be sufficient to challenge The Rock's credibility. And maybe in another context, that would work. But The Rock operates from a completely different foundation. The Rock's foundation isn't built on words or arguments. It's built on 2 decades of undeniable excellence, multiple championship reigns, main events at the biggest shows in professional wrestling history, and a transcendence into mainstream entertainment that very few wrestlers have ever achieved. That's not debatable. That's not negotiable. That's simply fact. What makes this confrontation so fascinating from a narrative standpoint is how it illustrates the concept of kayfabe dominance versus actual dominance. CM Punk was trying to use the tools of professional wrestling psychology, the promos, the accusations, the character work, to diminish The Rock. But The Rock simply reminded everyone that beneath all of that performance and storytelling, there are actual accomplishments that exist in the real world. And when you bring reality into a professional wrestling context, the dynamics shift completely. This also reveals something important about where CM Punk sits in the current WWE landscape. Punk is incredibly talented. He's a sophisticated performer who understands wrestling on a deep level, but he's also someone who has been working to rebuild his position and credibility. When you're in that position, when you're climbing, you sometimes feel the need to attack people above you on the card to justify your elevation. That's actually a smart instinct from a storytelling perspective. You create a reason for your rise by defeating someone larger than yourself. But the person you're attacking has to be receptive to that story. They have to be positioned where your challenge makes sense. The Rock, by his very nature, isn't positioned in a way where CM Punk's challenge makes sense. The Rock exists at a tier that transcends regular competitive positioning. The Rock is in a different category entirely. So when CM Punk tried to play the game of challenging someone at his level, he was actually playing a game that The Rock doesn't participate in anymore. The Rock exists above the typical hierarchy. He shows up when he decides to show up. He participates in storylines that interest him. He's not fighting for position or respect or championship opportunities. He's simply too established for any of that to matter. The way The Rock communicated this was masterful. He didn't say CM Punk wasn't a legitimate wrestler or that he hadn't accomplished anything valuable. The Rock simply positioned himself so far above the conversation that CM Punk's accomplishments became irrelevant by comparison. That's not arrogance. That's just accurate assessment of where these two wrestlers sit in the grand scheme of professional wrestling history. The Rock main event multiple WrestleManias. The Rock was a part of wrestling's most dominant era. The Rock transcended professional wrestling in ways that virtually no one else has ever done. From a character development perspective, this moment serves multiple purposes. First, it establishes The Rock as someone who still matters in WWE's current landscape, even if he's not actively competing on a weekly basis. Second, it creates a narrative foundation for a potential future confrontation that would now carry enormous psychological weight. Third, it actually elevates CM Punk by positioning him as someone important enough to warrant The Rock's response, even though that response was utterly devastating to Punk's position. This is the kind of moment that separates good wrestling television from great wrestling television. Good wrestling television gives you confrontations where both parties make strong points and leave you uncertain about who won the exchange. Great wrestling television gives you moments where the winner is so clear, the psychology so perfect, and the credibility implications so obvious that you can't help but be fascinated by how it happened and what it means for the future. What WWE has accomplished here is create a moment that will resonate with wrestling fans for a long time. The narrative implications of this confrontation extend far beyond the immediate Raw episode. This is the kind of exchange that changes how people perceive both wrestlers. It reinforces The Rock's status as someone operating above the standard competitive hierarchy. It establishes CM Punk as someone who understands wrestling psychology but potentially overestimated his ability to challenge certain figures. This is exactly the kind of storytelling that WWE Express exists to analyze and celebrate. The character psychology, the way credibility is communicated without needing to shout or make personal attacks, the way professional wrestling demonstrates dominance through presence and certainty. This is wrestling as an art form, and moments like this remind us why wrestling deserves to be taken seriously as a narrative medium. So if you're enjoying this deep dive into what happened between The Rock and CM Punk, make absolutely certain you're subscribed to WWE Express with your notifications turned on. We post detailed analysis of moments like this regularly, exploring the psychology, the character work, and the narrative sophistication that makes WWE television compelling. Subscribe to WWE Express now, hit that notification bell so you never miss our wrestling analysis, and share your thoughts in the comments. What did you think about how The Rock handled this situation? Do you think CM Punk made a tactical error? How do you see this playing out in WWE's future? We read and respond to every comment here at WWE Express. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on WWE Express.